Good evening, doctors and all our healthcare warriors. I'm Sandeep Khandelwal, Head of India Business for Dr.Reddy. The last 2 months, we've been facilitating a series of web-based dialogues between healthcare practitioners in India and leaders from different arenas to draw inspiration and to learn. We've had with us the Prime Minister of Bhutan, Shri Sadhguru, Colonel Lalit Rai, Shri Ravi Shankar, and Kapil Dev talking to all of us. Today it's my honor to introduce another icon, the first cricketing legend of India. Yes, we have the legendary cricketer Sunil Gavaskar with us. A lot of us grew up with many Sunil Gavaskar fanboy moments, lashing out against Malcolm Marshall and Michael Holding in the ferocious counter-punching exhibition at Kotla, playing an epic 221 at the Oval in a run chase, fighting virtually single-handedly on a minefield against Pakistan and their spinners at Bangalore, not to forget the moment of winning the World Championship of Cricket in Australia. Every moment is embedded in the memory like it happened yesterday, and one could go on and on. The most complete opening batsman of his generation, Sunil Gavaskar was the first player to give India cricket an identity upon which the future cricketers base their game, their personalities, and their equity. First India to score the highest number of test centuries and the highest number of test runs. Gavaskar today is the voice and conscience of the Indian cricket. He made India believe that India can win. The parallels to our situation today are striking. The COVID cases are rising, and India and the rest of the world is reeling under the pandemic. It's been a really tough last 3 months. How do we overcome this challenge? There's no precedence. Our sunny days ahead. Hi Sunil, pleasure to have you with us. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you for the welcome. Thank you for the kind words. And let me say, it really is very special for me to be interacting with you all, because I do believe that yours is the greatest profession that is there. You cure people, you alleviate the pain of the patients, you make sick people better, you give them confidence in carrying on with life despite some minor aches and sometimes some serious injuries and ailments. And therefore, I think yours is the greatest profession. And for me, it really is it's very huge. It's a privilege to be able to interact with you. And particularly at this particular time of our lives, where we are all under such severe stress with COVID-19, and it's causing us not just physical problems. There are mental issues. There are so many adjustments to be made to our lifestyle, to our daily calendar. And it's not easy to cope with that. But despite that, you are the warriors. You're the front line defending us, the ordinary man and woman, from COVID-19. You're the ones who are helping us to recover. Those of us who are unfortunately being condemned or consumed by this pandemic. You're the ones who are the first line of defense. And we can't thank you enough for what y'all are doing. Y'all are putting your lives on the line every single day for us. We can sit at home and insulate ourselves, isolate ourselves, but you can't do that. You don't have a rest day. As cricketers, we've had rest days. When we first started, as cricketers, we used to have in a 5-day game, we used to have 3 days play, and then the 4th day was a rest day. I don't think doctors ever have a rest day, because you could be on call anytime. In the middle of the night, you could get a call to attend to a particular patient. And I'm not talking about just now, but throughout your careers as medical professionals. So all I can say to you is, God bless you. Keep on doing the fantastic work that you're doing. And again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to interact with you. It really is a huge privilege for me to do so. And by the way, And by the way, just as a little aside, because I think this was a little bit too serious, just as a little bit lighthearted, I'm also a doctor, but not the medical kind. I've got doctorates from 4 universities. One from the Annamalai University in near Chennai, then one from the Andhra Pradesh University in Visakhapatnam, then the MS University in Indore, and the D.Y. Patil University in New Mumbai. So you could say I'm a doctor. I don't use the word doctor. I don't use that doctor before, but well, you could say that I'm a doctor. In fact, at some of these conventions, medical conventions, where I'm sometimes invited, like now, to speak, I do introduce myself as doctor, and they all sort of are a little bit taken aback. The real doctors are taken aback when I call myself a doctor. Just like I think with airline, if I've gone to an airline party and there are these pilots and commanders who come and introduce themselves as Captain so and so, I say I'm former Captain Sunil Gavaskar, because former captain of India. So this is the light side.
No, okay. So now I know I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Sunil Gavaskar and not just any, right? So thank you, Sunil. I think our audience has been very excited. We kept them waiting. So without any more any more delay, let me start with some of the questions that we have curated for you.
Sure.
So today, Sunil, our SCPs are at the frontier of this battle that they're facing. Fear of catching the infection for self, for passing on to their family is a big concern. If you were to talk about your journey, you were one of the first batsmen who faced the West Indies pace battery, and that too without a helmet. Can you share how did you overcome that fear and some tips for our healthcare professionals?
Well, first and foremost, there was no fear, because if you have got fear, you're never going to succeed as a batsman. You don't have to be an opening batsman. If you're a number 3, number 4, number 5 batsman, if there is fear, then you're never going to succeed. The thing about starting young, facing, when I was young, I mean, I was vertically challenged, and so all the fast bowlers used to try and bully me, and of course the bouncer was the weapon to try and bully me. So right from my school days, I got quite used to playing the short ball, quite used to being hit on the thighs, quite used to being hit on the chest, and that in a way taught me, yes, that the cricket ball can hurt bad at times, but it can't kill you. So far, if you have a look at the history of cricket, and particularly international cricket or first-class cricket, there really have been only 1 or 2 fatalities. One is the sad fatality of Phil Hughes, the Australian, who got hit just behind, and he died because of that blow. And there was Raman Lamba, who played with me in one-day cricket for India, was my colleague while I was just finishing my career. And he was standing at forward short leg, and he got hit. He wasn't wearing a helmet. He got hit on the head by a sweep shot by the opposition batsman. And but otherwise, the cricket ball can hurt you bad, but it can't kill you. And of course, now you've got helmets and lots of protective equipment that can protect you against a cricket ball. So you got used to it. And because of the fact that the helmets or the protective equipment wasn't available when we started playing, we never even thought of it. There was no question. I mean, we barely had thigh pads to start with. I used to have, you'll probably laugh at that, I used to have the hand towels that you get in your hotel rooms. I used to stuff it down my pocket, my front pocket, my left pocket, and that used to be my temporary thigh pad. So, we started with that before the sponge thigh pad came. Now you have got a fiberglass thigh pad, much, much better. So once you get used to the fact that, you've got to play, go out there and play, you do that. And I would imagine that that's exactly what you, the COVID warriors, have got to do. You've got used to the fact that earlier on, when you went in to look at your patients, you weren't wearing masks, you weren't wearing any protective equipment. But now, this particular pandemic is such that it has forced all of us to wear masks. You in particular, you wear, the doctors, you wear the PPE, which protects you, the suit which protects you. But that's a new thing. And I think it's a matter of getting used to it, which I'm sure you will get used to it, because at the end of the day, what you want to do is protect yourself to be able to serve others better. So today also in cricket, when batsmen wear helmets or wear, chest guards or forearm protectors, they are protecting themselves. They're giving themselves the confidence to be able to play well for their teams and to do well for their teams. So that's exactly the way I would sort of, say that this is similar.
Interesting, Sunil. Another question that we have for you is cricket is like a religion in India and can get people extremely emotional. Public reactions can be very illogical, very irresponsible especially when you lose. I'm sure you've seen the ugly sides of the masses quite a few number of times. Similar violent behavior is being displayed by few misguided people in various hospitals against multiple doctors. What's your message to the medical fraternity? What's your message to the general public on that?
Well, I think first and foremost, let me say that it is unforgivable and unacceptable. Absolutely. This kind of behavior is totally unacceptable. I do understand. I do understand the feelings of those who might have lost their near and dear ones. To take it out is totally unacceptable. I was in 83 when we lost to the West Indies. In 1976, when we lost to England, our bus had been stoned. While we were leaving the ground, we've had the spectators showing their disappointment, showing their anger by smashing the window panes, and one or two players have been gassed. They've had some injuries. That's no way for anybody to behave. I've always used the argument that when we do well, you don't throw jewelry or valuables at us. So you've got no business to throw rubbish or to throw stones at us when we do badly. Sure, you clap when we do well, so don't clap. Maybe if you want, you can boo us, but you cannot throw things at us because we've not been able to satisfy. And similarly, I think with you in the medical profession, when you've got to face the consequences of God, in fact, taking the near and dear ones of those who have been there, I do believe that you have to try and maybe go away from the place as quickly as possible, but do not give up. Because if you give up, then who's going to look after the ones who are unwell?
So, Sunil, many practicing doctors in hospitals are going through a tough time where they have to either shut down their practice for the last 2-3 months or the practice have really reduced. They now need to bounce back and get their practice back on track again. I'm sure there are multiple times in your career when you've gone through a lean patch and hit form again. Any stories for our doctors who are trying to unlock their practice and get back to normalcy?
Well, I guess it's very difficult to sort of connect it with cricket. But if I might say, it's first and foremost, it's got to be a belief in yourself. See, in cricket, you can't be successful every time, whether you're a batsman or a bowler. You could fail in a game, you could fail in a couple of test matches. But as long as you believe in yourself, as long as you go back and practice that much harder, as long as you try and learn from your previous experience as to what could have gone wrong, what might have gone wrong, and then take the steps to try and get better, try and not make the mistakes that you made in the earlier part, you look forward to the next test. Most importantly is to have the belief in yourself that you will be able to come back. Yes, these are again tough times for doctors to go and open their clinics again. There'll be a different way that you might have to examine patients because you'll still have to maintain a certain social distance to check on the patients. I'm not too sure medically how you will be able to do that, but at the end of the day, you are trained to be able to see sometimes by just seeing the patient, not necessarily touching the patient. You're able to sometimes diagnose as to what could be the problem, and it's only when you actually physically examine the patient that you might be able to actually say, look, this is the problem. So I suppose that is what you have to look at, that you are qualified, you have worked so hard, you've got the experience, and yes, that there was a setback, but you can restart again and you will be as successful as you were earlier.
Another thing, Sunil, you've been mentioned in various interviews that concentration has been your strongest point.
Yes.
In today's context, when there are so many distractions for nurses, paramedics, doctors as they serve the patients, can you talk about some instances where you really required it the most, and any suggestions for us to avoid mental distractions? Any, I mean, if you can highlight any sledging incidences when people try to get you off track.
Well, when we played, there wasn't that much of sledging. I mean, sledging, as is commonly understood, is that there is a lot of uh, abuse uh, of the opposition player. So when we played, there was very little spoken. If at all anything was spoken, it was more like banter. And obviously, the whole idea of the fielding side is to distract you, to disturb your concentration, to disturb your focus, make you think of something else. And the instance that I remember very clearly is way back in 1974, when I got 100 after 3 years. My first series in the West Indies, I got 400s, but then for 3 years I didn't get 100. And then we were playing in Manchester on a really cold, windy day, little bit of drizzle, with the pitch getting freshened up by that little drizzle where you don't go off the field. Umpires don't take you off the field. And I was playing in now, of course, when now the kits of the players are brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Stretchable trousers. We didn't have stretchable trousers then. So near the groin, my trouser had torn. And so Tony Gregg, who was my teammate for the World 11 3 years earlier, was standing at Silly Point and constantly reminding me of the fact that, my trouser was torn. The Silly Point teacher was standing right in front of me with his hand out like this, and kept saying, I can actually touch you. I mean, I obviously I can't say what he said he was going to touch through the trousers, through the tear in the trousers. But he was saying all kinds of things. Oh, do you like air conditioning? Do you like that? Are you feeling the Manchester cold? That kind of thing. He was trying to sort of, distract me. But clearly, I think, you focused on the bowler and what he was going to be bowling. So whatever Greggy was saying, I was trying to sort of ignore it completely. And I think that's exactly what you've got to do as well. You try and ignore. There'll always be people who will try and disturb your concentration, try and take your focus away from something. But if you're confident in yourself, if you know what you're going to do, then what you've got to do, then I think you will be back, your focus will be back again. Just as an aside, if I might add, when I went into the Indian change room at tea time, I started to change the trouser. I was still batting, and I started to change the trouser and put on a fresh pair of trousers. And my captain, Ajit Wadekar, who was sitting opposite me, asked me, hey, Sunil, look, what are you doing? Ajit had that little drawl. So, oh, Sunil, what are you doing? So I said, Captain, trouser, in Marathi, I said, trouser is torn, so I'm wearing a new trouser. He's saying, nothing doing, you're going with the same trouser. I said, Captain, the trouser is torn. Nothing, you're not changing your luck. You're going to play with the same trouser. So I had to go out with the same trousers. And as soon as I went out, Greggy was there again. He said, what happened? You haven't changed the trouser. What? You like the air conditioning? You like the Manchester cold so much? So then, it was.
And I'm sure it would have been really embarrassing, right? At that point in time. The other thing that at least that strikes us is, that West Indies tour of 1976, 403 runs to score in the fourth inning. You and Gundappa Vishwanath go out and do the unthinkable. We actually won by 4 wickets, riding on hundreds by both of you.
Yeah.
The time also set the record as the highest successful run chase in the test matches, which lasted for a lot of time.
Yes.
Was there any doubt, skepticism, or what were you feeling at that point in time? Or was there a supreme confidence that you guys are going to do it?
Well, no, let me first say that we never thought of a win. We only thought of a win around just after lunch on the last day. Because, look, we were so many 400 runs behind. We had been dismissed for not too many in the first innings. So our first thought, obviously, was when we came into bat on the fourth day's evening. Our first thought at that stage was to survive that evening and see how it goes. We didn't want to lose too many wickets. And if I recall rightly, I think we ended the day with, 100 and something, 120 for no loss. And then the next day, at lunchtime, we were in a good position. We had lost another 2 wickets only. So just two openers had been dismissed, and Vishy and Mohinder Ramanath were batting well. So an hour after lunch is when actually we started thinking, hello, now we have a chance, because the way Vishy and Mohinder were batting, it looked as if they were not going to get out. And that's the time, thoughts of victory started to come in our minds. And then when they came at tea time, it was clear that if we didn't lose wickets, the new ball was going to be due at that stage. And if we didn't lose wickets to the second new ball, then we'd be able to get to a win. And that's what happened. Because when the second new ball was taken, it actually helped us, because the ball came on to the bat that much quicker. And Vishy was in his element, playing the flick and playing the square cut and the forcing shot. And in fact, we got lots of runs against that second new ball. And then we went on to win and those were the days of the mandatory overs, 20 mandatory overs, half an hour after tea. And we won with plenty to spare. But at that, when we started the chase, clearly our intention was we were not thinking too far ahead of ourselves. We're thinking that evening, not to lose wickets that evening. And that's how it is. I think it's a question of slow and steady wins the race. And that's exactly what happened with that. We made sure that we didn't lose wickets, which gave us a nice platform to launch an attack after tea.
And maybe that's the way I think some of our healthcare practitioners now need to think, especially in terms of how do we fight the epidemic.
Yeah.
The other thing that, it's always, I think, been in my mind is, this adversity stretches us as leaders and administrators. And you've been our captain, with characters like Kapil Dev, Kirmani, Shrikant, Ravi Shastri, Venkateswar, all really strong personalities in themselves. So, and the team under you went through a lot of tough times. What was your biggest leadership challenge that you faced as a captain? How did you keep the morale of the team high? Can you throw some anecdotes around there?
Yes, I think we had, in my leadership, the 84-85 series against England was perhaps the toughest to handle. Toughest to handle because we had a situation where there had been a change of captaincy twice in a period of 2 years. So I was captain of the Indian team 82-83. And then we lost to Pakistan 3-0. And not too many people, not too many captains, both in India and in Pakistan, survived a loss against each other. So if a Pakistani captain loses to India, he's going to, and if an Indian captain loses to Pakistan, he's also going to be removed. So I was, stripped of the captaincy. Kapil was made the captain, under whom we won the World Cup. But then he had a knee injury. We did win against the West Indies when West Indies came, but then he had a knee injury, and so wasn't able to play the Asia Cup, where I was reappointed captain. We won that, and so when Kapil was fit and back again, he should have been the captain. Instead, the selection committee kept me as the captain, which I at that time also, but now even more so, I feel was not the correct decision. And so we had a situation where, with somebody as successful as Kapil, he was playing under me. And sadly, after winning the first test, we lost the second test. And the slide actually started from there. The pressure actually started from there. And my own form wasn't good. And therefore, I believe that a captain must always be a certainty in the team to be able to lead a team, because that way he's showing by example what can be done. And that for me was the most challenging time as a captain of the Indian team, the 84-85 series against.
Another question I had for you, Sunil. You were part of the era that finally saw India being recognized as a worthy opponent in the test arena, wherever the team traveled. What changed during the 70s and 80s? If you reflect back, what in your mind was the key recipe?
Well, I think in the 1971 team, we had many players who were born after independence, and so we didn't have any complexes as such. We still had some players who were born before independence. We certainly had that. And so maybe we were just that little bit more fearless. We weren't complex, playing against England. We didn't have that inferiority complex or whatever. complex that they were always going to be better. There was one instance, if I might tell you. This was during the Barbados Test in my first tour. On the last day, in those now you get lunch in your if you're a not out batsman at lunchtime, or the 12th man or the reserve player brings lunch for you in the change room itself. You don't have to go to the lunch room. But in those days there was no such thing. So I was batting at lunch, and we went up to the we had to climb up a couple of floors to go to the Barbados Cricket Association lounge, where there were all the invitees of the Cricket Association president, some VIPs of Barbados, some tourists, etc. And we were sitting with them. Today, in terms of security, anti-corruption, etc., that is unthinkable. But in those days, there was no such thing. We were sitting there, and I had gone a little bit late because I was batting, and so by the time I took off my pads, etc., and went up, I sat at the table, and there was an Englishman sitting there. I didn't know who he was, but Ajit Wadekar was sitting on the table. ML Jaisima, my hero, he was sitting there. Hirapalli Prasanna, they were all sitting on that table. And this Englishman was speaking to Ajit Wadekar and trying to say to him that when we were fielding, in order to delay the West Indian declaration, we had not been very swift between overs, if I might say so. A perfectly legitimate tactic. So we were slowing things down, and he was taking Ajit Wadekar, the captain of the Indian team. There was this Englishman who I didn't know, taking the captain of, because India was to go to England in a couple of months' time after that tour of West Indies. So he was taking him off, saying, "Oh, this we will not allow you to do that. In England, in England, this is unacceptable." So I just sat there, and I didn't know who he was, and I said, "Well, we will play the way we want to. Who are you to tell us what our tactics should be?" So he's, sort of sputtered into his food. And I'm suddenly finding that my legs under the table are being kicked by my teammates, as if to, maybe suggest to me that shut up, don't say anything. So I didn't actually, I said, well, we will play as we want to. I mean, Ajit, my captain, was sitting on my left, and he was having his food, and he was just nodding when that man was, going on about. Anyway, so I went down, and then these guys came up, and he said, "Do you know who he was?" I said, "No, I don't know who he was." So apparently he was some, cricket correspondent of the Daily Telegraph, and supposed to be a big voice in those days in English cricket. So I said, "Well, how can he tell us how we are playing?" He had been talking about the previous evening. So, and these guys who were born before 1947, some of these guys' teammates, were still probably in awe of him. I wasn't, because I was born after independence. To me, it made no difference whether it's English or whatever it is. So maybe that is, the thing that might have been the difference in the 1970s, where you started to get people who were born after independence who didn't have that burden or didn't have that complex of being subjugated again, to a foreign rule.
So you were speaking about Ajit, your captain, during this episode, and I read somewhere that there was a time when he pushed you in the washroom, locked you away when he saw Gary Sobers coming to the dressing room. What was that all about?
Well, that's quite funny, actually, because I just told you an earlier story about Ajit's superstition about not allowing me to change the trousers. So what had happened was, when I got my first century, I would be lucky. I'd been lucky because I'd been dropped by Gary Sobers in my debut game. In my next test, where I got my first test 100 again, Gary dropped me. So at the end of the day, those days, both the teams used to get together in the lounge, in the players' lounge, and sit down and have a chat, maybe have a beer or something like that. So Lance Gibbs, who was playing in that test match, said, "Oh, you must be lucky. What do you eat in the morning when you're so lucky? You've got a couple of chances, etc." So, Lance Gibbs, Gary Sobers, for me, a debutant, for me, just to be able to stand in the same room, breathe the same air, was fantastic. So I didn't say anything to them. I was just listening to them, and Gary had been having a little tough time with his batting. So he said, listen, oh, you're lucky. I must come and touch you for luck before I go. So next day, he came and he used to come and visit our dressing room every morning before the game started. That was how Gary was. Very friendly. He was tough on the field, but off the field, very friendly. So he would come and say hello to Ajit every morning, Ajit Wadekar. So that's what he did on that last day of Guyana. And he said, where's that little fellow? And he came and he touched me. And guess what? He got 100. There was an appeal for a catch against him. The umpire gave not out. But I don't think he was out. I mean, I was in the deep fine leg, so I didn't know exactly what happened. But Gary was always a walker. So the umpire gave him not out. He got 100. So again, it happened for the next test. When it was their turn to bat, he came in our change room and he would touch me. And he got 178. And then when we came to the last fifth and final test, in the first innings, he again came to our change room and he touched me and he got 130. So on day 6, he had been injured on day 4 taking a catch. So he wasn't there for most of the fielding on day 5, and we were still batting. And day 6, we could hear him. There was just a little wall between the two change rooms, and we could hear him laughing and all that. And we could clearly hear him say, okay, guys, let me go and say hello to Ajit and the boys. So we heard him. Ajit was there, and Ajit heard. All of us heard. So Ajit said, oh, yeah, to Gary Gary. I said, so what? Gary Gary. Oh, man, he's going to touch you. So he went and locked me in the toilet. He took me inside next to the change room toilet, and he locked me there. I said, but Gary can touch me anywhere. He can touch me as we are going. He can touch me on the field. What does that got to do? And do you really think Gary Sobers is scoring 100 because he's touching me on the shoulder? So Ajit said, nothing doing. And so, he locked me up in there. And guess what? West Indies had to chase, I think, about 180, 190. And when Gary came into bat, he was bowled first ball for a duck. So maybe Ajit took a point there.
But Sunil, I think at least now we need some of that luck rubbing onto us. I think all of us need to come there and touch you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
So another thing, and you've played with Pakistan a lot. Tough cricketers, their own way of thinking. Any funny episodes around there? Anything around Javed? I'm sure there are multiple stories that you would have gone through.
Well, I mean, with Pakistan, it was always very tough because they understood our language, and clearly, I think with the history between the two countries, though that game has got an added significance. That's got an added pressure because how much people back home are. If you're playing in Pakistan, how much people back home in India want you to do well, and so that adds a little bit to the pressure. It also adds a little bit to the spice, but. Again, when we played, there was not, that much of banter. We had a lot of, when things didn't go well, we had a lot of galis coming forth, but not that much of banter. The only thing that I can remember is, Javed loved to talk when he came into bat. So we would try our best not to really talk with him. As he was, at the end of the over, he would come and, say something, try and, engage you in conversation. So you looked the other way and you went away, because that's how he kept his, concentration going. Some people don't like to be spoken to at all. Some people like Javed actually like a little bit of a conversation. That sort of spurs them on.
Fair. Sunil, there's this whole thing about, where when you actually got your 2900, the whole crowd erupted in applause and you had no clue what was going on unless Dilip Venksakkar, who was the non-striker, came to you and said, bloody hell, it's your 29. What happened? You were not paying attention to the thing. It was such an important occasion, I'm sure.
I know a lot of people get surprised, but I didn't look at the scoreboard when I was batting. I wasn't interested in how many runs I was. I was only interested in knowing how many I had scored when I got out. I wasn't interested before that. And the reason for that is very simple, because I thought that every batsman has his own way, own method of batting, in the sense that apart from the technique aspect, the mental aspect as to how he sort of prepares himself to play a long innings. So some people go by a target of 10 runs. I'm going to score 10. After 10, I'm going to go to 20, 13. So what would happen? I started that way as well when I started Ranji Trophy. So I used to look at the scoreboard. But I found that if I was, say, on a 40, 46 or something like that, in order to get to a 50, I would go and play a shot to a ball that wasn't there to be driven and then get caught out for 46, 48, because in the anxiety to get to a 50, I would get out. Or even when I was in the 90s, fortunately that didn't happen too often, but certainly in the 40s, particularly from 45, 46 to 50, I've got out many times. So I realized that, look, this was just sort of not doing me any good. The best thing was not to know how many runs you were. Then you played each ball on its merits. Then you didn't try to score off a ball which was not scoreable. Then you sort of tried to defend it. So that sort of helped me. And so what had happened in this particular instance, I had no idea. Because generally when you score a 50, there is a crowd applauds and you have an idea you got to a 50. Then in India, when you get to within a shot of a 50 or 100, the crowd starts a little slow hand clap. Again, which gives you an idea. But in this instance, there was nothing of that sort. There was no slow hand clap, nothing to give me an indication that I was close to 100. So when I did actually get to that 100, I wasn't aware of it. I was like walking back, and that's when Philip, midway said, bloody hell, that's your 29th. So that's how I got to know that it was the 100.
So, Sunil, we've been preparing for this interview and we tried to get some sneak previews about you. We have a very close friend of yours, Dr. Ajit Desai, the cardiologist in Bombay.
Yes.
And he gave us some tidbits. He told us that your friend takes a lot of liberties with you at the parties and, especially in the evenings. And he asked me to ask you, what are those, and maybe talk a little about those.
Well, liberties, yes. I mean, what are friends for? Friends are there to, I would imagine that they are your greatest wealth. Family and friends are your greatest wealth, because they're always going to be with you. So they're absolutely, totally entitled to, pull my leg. Because they know me since a long time. I don't know what Ajit was referring to. Maybe you have to ask him about that himself. But yes, I think they pull my leg. They're constantly at me at about something or the other, which I've done or which I've written or which I've spoken. So that's basically what they do.
And we always get the insight about Sunil Gavaskar as the cricketer administrator, but I think there's also a side to you. You are the chairman of the Heart to Heart Foundation, which raises funds for 3 surgeries for children with congenital heart diseases. What made you venture into that? What got you click on those?
Well, I mean, it really is something. I'm a devotee of Sri Satya Sai, and the Sai Sanjeevani Hospital has been in Palwal, Haryana, about an hour's drive from New Delhi, in Raipur in Chhattisgarh, and in Kharghar in New Mumbai, again an hour's drive from Mumbai. They are treating patients, children with CHD, and there are more than 300,000 born in India who are waiting for these surgeries, and not everybody can afford. They are generally coming from poor families or daily wage earners who can't really afford a surgery. So the Heart to Heart Foundation was set to try and facilitate those surgeries, and I was made I was given the honor to be the chairman of that trust. So for me, I think it was an opportunity to try and save children's lives, because when we save children's lives, who knows, what they're going to, go on and do for their families and for their country. And so there is a gift of life program also along with this Heart to Heart Foundation. And it resonates with me for the simple reason that if Gary Sobers had not dropped me in my first innings in Test cricket when I was batting on 12, I wouldn't be sitting and talking to you here, because that allowed me to get a half century and keep my place in the team for the next Test. In the next Test, he dropped me again when I was on 6 and I went on to score 100, my first 100 in Test cricket. So he had given me a gift of cricketing life. And if I can do something with the Heart to Heart Foundation, raise funds, spread awareness of of the CHD and save children's lives, then for me, it is something that I'm really, blessed to have been able to. So thank you for asking me about that. I do hope that you can also spread the awareness. And please, those who are here, please go on to www.h2h.foundation and you'll get more information. Thank you so much.
Very noble things. There's this question from Dr. Sanjay Gandhi from Meerut. What's the secret of your youth and fitness? We've always seen you like this.
Well, first and foremost, I think thank you for saying that I'm looking youthful. There's a bit of hair color, so that helps. A little bit of a little bit of hair powder to make it look thicker and stuff like that. But I think the biggest plus is the fact that I'm not a foodie. So I eat very little. I'm not a good guest to have it to invite to eat, because the woman of the house feels that I've not enjoyed the dinner that she's cooked or the lunch that she's cooked, because I eat so little. But that's exactly how we were brought up. When we were growing up, we had a food shortage in India, the PL 480, when we depended on the Americans to send us food grain, etc., and where our Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri had asked all of us to give up one meal. So since then, I think I've sort of got used to eating very little. That may have also contributed to me not growing much taller, but there you are.
And so, how could you remain cool even when, you've been a part of a lot of wrong umpiring decisions, but you never seem you flustered on the field? What give you that calmness?
I think it is taught to you that the umpire's decision is final. Yes, you can get disappointed, and occasionally you can't hold back your emotions because you're so keen, particularly when you're playing for India. You're so keen to be able to score runs, score hundreds, and if you're given out when you think you're not out, then yes, there's an obvious sense of disappointment. Well, we've been brought up to respect the umpire's decision as being final. You just go away. You take your anger out in the change room. You can throw things around, throw your gear around, and stomp and scream. But that's in the privacy of the change room. But that's what you're taught at an early age. Respect the umpire's decision, and I think I've done it most of the time. Even that famous walk off, where everybody still believes that it was because of the wrong umpiring decision. It actually wasn't, because if you have a look at the video, you will find, yes, I was upset at the decision, and everybody later on has said that there was a clear inside it, so I wasn't out LBW. But when you see the video, you can see I'm actually going to the change room. It's only after I was abused that I've come back to Chetan Chauhan and then tried to take him off the field. So it wasn't the LBW decision that got me to do that. It was just the abuse. But yes, I think occasionally you might lose your cool, but generally you try and keep in control.
And we've spoken about the fact that you never wore a helmet. But there's I was listening to an interview by Ravi Shastri, and he spoke about the time when Malcolm Marshall hit you on the forehead, right bang there, and you were not shaken at all, and the next ball was a 4 right straight down the line. Can you just share that incident with us?
I had a skull cap made, and the skull cap, because the helmet in those days was more like a motorcycle helmet, very, very heavy. And Imran Khan was the one who kept on going on at me that I should wear a helmet, because he said that there is one ball that every batsman loses sight of. You don't pick it up from the hand, you don't pick it up off the surface. For some reason, it happens to every batsman at least once, maybe more than once. And he said for that particular reason. Anyway, so I'd seen Mike Brady wear this skull cap under his cap, county cap. And I thought that was quite cool. Didn't seem very heavy. So I said, let me go and make something similar. So Brady gave me the address and I got it made. And it actually traveled with me, that skull cap traveled with me for 3 years in my kit bag. I never used it for 3 years. So even in the West Indies in 1983, I wasn't using it. It was in my kit bag. And I got hit by, yes, Malcolm right over here. Fortunately, when the bouncer came, I didn't turn my head. I was facing the bouncer, facing the ball, so I got hit here. But you know, the human skull is pretty thick, and so maybe I survived that. But after that, I thought, you know, since I've got hit here and I've got this skull cap, might as well use it. But you know something, Sandeep, uh, I gave the skull cap after the bicentenary test to the MCC. The MCC wanted a souvenir, a memento for their museum. And I gave it to him. And a neurologist, a German neurologist, when they have the tour of Lords, they went to the museum, and the helmet and the skull cap that time were hanging by a string in the museum. So the neurologist asked for, you know, both the helmet and this thing, and the curator of the museum gave it to them, gave it to this neurologist, and he asked, "Did these guys wearing it ever get hit?" Curator said, "Well, I don't know, but why do you ask?" And he said, I'm pretty certain that the man wearing the skull cap, if he had got hit, he would have died on the spot." So the curator said, why do you say so? He said, because this helmet which is there, it would have localized the blow, but with the skull cap, the impact of the blow would have reverberated right around the skull, and so he would have died on the spot because of that reverberation of the thing. I don't know, I mean, you doctors would probably know that, but that's what that neurologist said. Well, I never got hit on the skull cap, that's why I'm here.
So what was your most rewarding moment in your cricketing career? Something that you really relish, think about it.
The 1983 World Cup win. I don't think there's anything better. There's anything sweeter than that, as far as I'm concerned, in my cricketing career. That was the ultimate. India winning the World Cup. That's the ultimate for me. And, you know, the anniversary of the World Cup is coming in about a few days' time on the 25th of June, which is fantastic. Looking forward to celebrate that anniversary.
No, you're right, Sunil. I mean, honestly, that moment of Mahendra Amarnath running down the pitch and picking up that wicket, I think is something which is entrenched in all our minds forever. And, you know, if in the same stream, if I could ask you, what was the most difficult moment for you?
I think the most difficult moment is every time you lost, when India lost. That is the most difficult moment. And particularly India losing when they could have won the game. So those have been, you know, tough moments. We had a few of those moments in Australia in 1977, you know, in Brisbane by not too many, I think maybe 14 or 18 runs. We should have won the next test as well at Perth, but we lost that as well. We had taken, you know, 8 Australian wickets, but they won in the end. So these are moments, you know, which make you, you know, very, very down when your team has lost from a position where they could have won. Sometimes when you're outplayed and you lose badly, that also hurts. But at least you know that you've been outplayed. But when you're very close to winning and not winning, and you know that 221 that you talked about, it gave me no joy really, because we should have won that match, but we ended up not winning by about 8 or 9 runs. So the 221 doesn't, you know, I mean, if we had won, and even if I had scored 21, it would have been fantastic.
So you played multiple roles in your life, cricketer, administrator, commentator, and you've done them amazingly well. What's in it to you that makes you evolve so well in all these roles?
I look forward to the day. I look forward to the next day. You know, and therefore I look forward to the challenge that the day brings. And to meet the challenge, I think you'll have to think a little bit differently. Not every day can be the same. So when I finished with cricket, fortunately, around that time, television was opening up. So often it's been a question of being in the right place at the right time. So when television opened, I just finished playing cricket, and so I got into television with BBC, with Channel 9, with South Africa. In South Africa won that time. Then in New Zealand, also New Zealand Channel 1. So I got these opportunities, and then I realized that, you know, what this is doing is it's giving me a wonderful opportunity of being in touch with the game, seeing how the game is evolving, seeing how the current players are rising to the challenge, to see how their temperament is, you know, also changing, the attitude, approach toward the game changing. And so that was absolutely fantastic for me to do. Also, the big plus was that it kept me in the limelight. A lot of my players who played with me, when I'm standing next to them, say at an airport or whatever it is, a lot of people come and take my autograph because they know my face. With somebody, who's there and who's not on television, maybe, the youngsters today don't actually recognize that person. So in a way, it's a blessing to be doing, television. So you're in touch with the game, and the public is also in touch with you.
No, so I'm sure there is nobody who enjoys cricket who would not recognize you. On this thing about this, you're extremely well traveled, and I'm sure you've met multiple heads of state, multiple dignitaries. Any anecdote around there? Anything that you learned from them?
Well, I think yes, I think we've been very fortunate from meeting the Queen of England to Nelson Mandela to the prime ministers in Australia, because every time just before the Sydney Test match, the prime minister has a house in Sydney where he comes before the Test match in Sydney, and there's always a reception at the prime minister's house where the prime minister invites both teams for cocktails an evening, and so you get the opportunity to meeting the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the President of Pakistan. Yes, those have been absolutely amazing moments. I particularly remember General Zia for the fact that he had come to, unannounced, he had come to watch a 3-day game at Rawalpindi, which is the twin city of, and Islamabad is the twin city. So he had come suddenly without any notice, and there was panic all around because there was this question of security, etc. So I was not playing that game. So I was sent to sit with him. I sat with him and I asked him just as he was leaving, "Sir, are you going to be in Lahore next week?" So he said, "Nay, I've got some American generals coming to see me, so I don't think I can be there." But he stopped as he was leaving and he said, "But why? Why do you ask?" So I said, "Sir, in Lahore next week, I'm going to be playing my 100th Test match, and I'm going to be the first in the subcontinent to be playing 100 Test matches. So it would have been, fantastic if you had been also there to see it." He said, "No, I don't think I'll be able to do it, but wish you all the best. Not you, wish you only, not the team. Wish you all the best." He said that, and he went to it. And you forgot about it because it had happened the week earlier. But on the morning of the first day of the Test match, we get a message that he is flying down specifically, to meet me and to wish me. Now, how terrific is that? That General Zia, and he actually came in. He gave me lots of presents, gifts on the occasion of the 100th Test match. Sat and watched the game for half an hour, and then helicoptered back to Islamabad, and that I thought was a fantastic gesture. So we've been very fortunate that way. Like I said, had the opportunity to meet the Queen of England and Prince Philip. Prince Philip can be, he's got a great sense of humor, and so this was against the West Indies in 1983, and the reception was in New Delhi, but West Zone was playing the West Indies just before the Ahmedabad Test. West Zone was playing the West Indies in Kolhapur. So the West Zone selectors, because they knew I had got the invitation to meet the Queen and Prince Philip in New Delhi as the British High Commissioners, they dropped me from the team. They left me out saying, "No, you go over there, we'll try out another batsman." So I went there and being introduced to, met the Queen, and then Prince Philip was behind her. And so he asked me, "So when is the next test?" And I said, "It's in Ahmedabad." And he said, Ahmedabad, where all those, those textile mills, that kind of thing. And so I said to him, "Yeah, just like in Manchester." So he looked at me, got a bit of a shock that I, told him that just Manchester. "Oh, and he walked away. But at least he took it in the right spirit." So, been fortunate to meet some heads of states and of course Nelson Mandela. How can that be something I forget? He wasn't the president then. He had just been released from Robben Island, and to be able to meet him was amazing. We went and met him at his house, and before we left, I asked him, "Sir, is there a memento I can have of this visit?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." But he went into an annex room over there, and he came out holding Muhammad Ali's boxing gloves. And he said, "These are the boxing gloves that Muhammad Ali gave me." And I'm thinking to myself at that time, wow, gift from Nelson Mandela, Muhammad Ali's boxing gloves, amazing, fantastic. He said, "I used to spar in my little room in Robben Island. I used to do a bit of sparring. So Muhammad heard about it and he gave me these gloves. But he took them back. He just he just showed those gloves to me. For a moment, my hopes were all very high. He took them back. Then he came out with a book, and book Truth of Moral Life, and he signed it, wrote a nice message for me, signed it, and gave it to me. It's still my prized possession. That book from Nelson Mandela. So yes, I think some wonderful memories.
And the audience will not spare me, Sunil, if I don't ask you to do the Jamaican drawl. Any dialogue that you have, any sentence that you can speak.
Well, not a Jamaican. It's the Trinidadian. I hope the evening was a good one. Sandeep, you enjoyed the evening, I hope, no? We can do that again, man. Okay? All right. Okay.
Thank you. So, you've been a huge inspiration, Sunil, as we draw towards the end of this session. The last 75 days has been really difficult for everybody, especially the healthcare warriors. Doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers are doing their best to care for their patients. Chemists and stockists are really ensuring that the medicines stocks are adequate there, it's available. And I think pharma salesmen are playing their role in supplying the essential services, the essential medicines.
Yes.
We need sunny words in these difficult times. Any message from you, anything that we can look up to?
Well, first and foremost, keep your chin up. Because, like I said, you are the warriors. And we all depend on you to not only look after us if we are unwell, but also to supply us the preventive medication or medication that boosts our immunity. So first and foremost, thank you for that. But I think the thing to do is not really look back at what has happened, because that every time we look back, it stops us going forward. And I think that is what we in our lives, I think what we must try and do is stop looking back. Yes, looking back or thinking about it is very good because you can learn from that experience. But if every time you look back, you're just stopping yourself going forward. So all I would say to everybody in this battle is look ahead. Surely there is a vaccine round the corner. Surely there are things going to happen which is going to take care of this pandemic. It might not be tomorrow, day after, but surely there's going to be something which is going to make us, get back to our normal lives. First and foremost, keep your chin up. That is like what I'm saying. And believe me, despite the fact that this is the monsoon season, sunny days aren't too far away.
Thank you, Sunny. It was really inspiring having you with us. And I think everybody watching us for the past 1 hour is surely very energized with your thoughts. A very big thank you for taking this time out on behalf of Dr. Reddy, and I think all the healthcare warriors there out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.